Friendship International, Step 4. We are going to make spines to go on the spine of our album. And it starts with 3 pieces of paper, 3 7/8 by 6, 3 1/8 by 6, and 2 3/8 by 6. What we're going to do is we're going to score at 1/2 and 1 inch along the long ends of every single piece. Now, you can use a paper cutter to do your scores, and just set it on the 1/2 inch mark and score, move it over to the inch mark and score. And you can do that on both long sides. So 1/2 inch, and 1 inch on all the sides. After you do that, you want to fold them and burnish them a little to make the spines very flexible. Now, this is pretty thick card if you're using the 12 by 12 that I gave you. If you're using the 8 1/2 by 11, it's not as thick. But because it's thick and it has a white core, we have one additional step, and that is to cover the white edges with a little bit of ink. I'm using black soot oxide ink, or actually distress oxide ink, and you want to do that for, I think this one I already did last time, for all 3 pages, or 3 pieces of spine. So we're going to have 3 different size pieces, and they're all going to be folded. And after you fold them, I might as well do my edging as I talk here. As you fold them, you're going to add some double-sided tape on both sides of the spine if you're using pocket pages, and on one side if you're using a flat page. Now, if you don't know what kind of page you're going to be making, then don't put on your double-sided tape yet. You can add that after it's put together. I just like to do it first. It just saves some time. Okay. Now I want to show you a mistake I made. I tore part of the lining of this. And because the lining was torn, it showed the core. So I'm just going to put a little bit of black ink there to cover that up. And that'll cover up the mistake. And there's going to be so much on this, you'll never see this piece. Okay, so we can put the ink away. Now, let's see, I need one more thing, and I don't have it ready. I need some glue. Give me a second while I grab that. Okay, I just have some tacky glue, and because I want my spine nice and strong, I'm going to add tacky glue along with the double-sided tape. So when I put the double-sided tape on, I'm just using 1/4 inch, and the main piece you have to do is on the back in the middle fold. They all sit on top of each other in the long end. So you just want some double-sided tape. Doesn't have to be a lot because we're using 2 kinds of glue. You want that on the back of your spine so they will sit together. Now, it does help if you burnish them a little. Make sure there's no air bubbles. That will make the adhesive stay on better. And you can either lie it on top of each other, the second size on top of the first size on top of the next up, and then on top. Or you can just hold it, the part that's going to be glued, and try to center it. I find it's easier just to center the whole thing and rub. Then you take off the adhesive on that side, on the back side. Now this time I'm going to add, because it's a wider piece, I'm going to add a little bit of glue down the center too. Remember, this is going to be holding some pretty heavy pages, so you want to make sure that it's adhered well. And I now will center this in there, or just find the edge, put it down. Now, if you don't know what kind of pages you're using yet, and you might have to watch that page construction, which will be our next video, before you decide, just leave it like that. But if you do know, like I know, this box is going to have only pocket pages because it's my favorite. If you do know, go ahead and, whoop, let me burnish this a little. Go ahead and put them together. And have the adhesive already on for the next step. So I'm just placing it in the center, flipping it upside down, taking off the center adhesive again. Again, it's a wider space, so I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive right on top of the double-sided tape and between it. Center that again. I now have 6 spots that will be ready for pages. Now this is a double hinge. That means the pages will lie flat in your album very nicely, because we have an extra ½ inch that will flop around a little bit. So I'm making these nice and flexible. Now there's one more thing I like to do before I put it into my album, and that is to cut the 1/2 inch edges to the first score line, and that will make it easy for the pocket pages especially to be attached. And I do it to all 6 tabs. Last one. Now when we do add the pages, we will be adding more liquid glue, so you don't have to worry about this not covering all of the ½ inch. If you have 3/8 score tape or double-sided tape, you can use 3/8. You just don't want to go over the score lines. Okay. Next step, let's put it in our book, our album. Now here's our base of our album attached to the lid of the album. This was our spine piece. It's 6.5 by 65 millimeters. And I made a piece that is 6 1/4 by 2 3/8. which when attached to the spine, I think I'll go this way. When attached to the spine, we'll leave 1/8 of an inch all around. Now, because I printed this digital paper on white cardstock or card, I actually use index card weight. I buy it in bulk at Sam's. It seems to hold up really well for these albums. There. Now, you're going to hardly see this because this piece here is going over it. I could place it on the black, but I find just a little bit of color goes a long way in edging it and making it look perfect. So before you add your spine, so if you don't know what color you're using yet, and you have this spine, and you don't know what size pages, just keep this ready for the go. Don't put it in yet. But if you know the color, I'm using some patina paper that I found on Etsy, and for this album, and I'm adding some double-sided tape to the back, but I'm going to be very generous with some lines in between of liquid glue using a tacky glue. The other thing to remember is when you add this spine, before you add your pages, give it some time to dry so it's nice and firm. So I'm going to make sure my corners are covered. And then just a little bit on top. And I'm actually going to spread this out a little so that nothing oozes out. I'm just going to spread it out with my finger. See, it's already oozing out. This just gives me some movability in case I make it crooked, and it gives a little bit of extra sticking power. And I did do blacker along the edges so the white wouldn't be very stark. Okay, so there's my spine covered with decorative paper. And now I'm ready to add my spine base. So all I do is turn it over and remove the double-sided tape. And again, I like 2 tapes for the spine and the pages. I feel it helps hold it. So the score lines, remember we did 1/2 and 1 inch on the bottom, on the sides of all these pages, all 3 pages. So I don't want to go over the score. And I'm just using tacky glue. You can use your favorite glue. I like tacky because it's not too liquid and it doesn't squirt out very easily. Whoop, I went over my square line there. And if you do happen to squirt out, a little bit of baby wipes takes it off great. Okay, now I'm going to center the spine on top of my decorative piece. So I'm just going to push down. And I'm just burnishing it so that all the glue is adhered. Adhered and a teeny bit crooked, but it's going to be the breaks because it's adhered. Now you can see that the thickness here and this thickness here is a little bit different. Let me check the other one, and sure enough it is there too. So it's not perfectly straight. Now we don't have to worry about that yet, but when we place our pages on, we're going to start at the rear of the book. I'm going to place our page on, and we want to make sure the page is straight. So as long as it's close to the score line, we can make sure it lines up even with these top and bottom lines. And then we'll make this first one our placement, and then all these will follow. So that is our album ready for pages. There we go. All right, let's do that. There we go. So to begin with, cut your 3 pieces of cardstock and those measurements. Score along the long end of all of them. Let's see, a half an inch. So, and then after you score them, take the time to burnish all the scores. Maybe even go both directions so they're nice and flexible. And if you use white core paper, take the time to ink the edges so that this white won't show. It'll just blend in with the album base and your dark pages. Now this, if you have not made an album before, I find this is probably one of the most uncomfortable things, is making the spine. Once you've done a couple spines, you'll realize that it's pretty simplistic, even if you make yours a little crooked like I did. So that's it on our spine. This is step 4, and step 5 we'll start putting our pages in. So have fun making your spine, and I'll see you next step. Bye for now. God bless.